Welcome to the broadcast, my dear old fruits. Have you all overdosed on chocolate over the weekend, those of you who are celebrating Easter? Have you been guzzling? Naughty, naughty, very naughty, but very nice. Ha! It's April! It is April! How did that happen so quickly? It's also the first broadcast of the month, so in that spirit, it is time for me to give a monthly reminder to you to subscribe to this channel. If you mean to subscribe, check that you haven't been accidentally unsubscribed, because it happens a lot over all of YouTube. Check that, press the black button to subscribe, and tinkle the notification bell if you wish to be notified whenever I broadcast. And thank you so very much if you sent me a tip jar treat for Easter or over the month of March. It's truly kind of anybody who took the time to do that, and it's very much appreciated. Now, on with the show, and on with the king, because the king was energised and full of vim, vigour and vitality with Queen Camilla, wasn't he? Wasn't he? For Easter Matins at St George's, we'd seen that recent photograph of him during the Easter message period, looking a little bleary-eyed, a little bloodshot, and there were a few comments saying how de-energised he was looking. Well, you cannot keep this king down, my dear. He was up, he was at 'em, looking fit and spruce, back to business, and he was given the all clear for a brisk walkabout by the doctors. Doctor's orders to go out and shake 56 hands, he did, 56 hands. Threw caution to the wind. You know my personal preference. I would prefer if they all wore gloves when they were mixing with the hoi polloi, my dear, and the commoners. You don't know what they've been touching and wiping and picking and flicking, do you, my dear? You just really do not know, and sometimes it's the ones that look the most highfalutin and clean as a whistle that surprise you, you know. But he's seen it all, he's done it all, and the crowd were adoring, absolutely adoring they were. They queued for a mile, you know, around Windsor, at least a mile, and Queen Camilla wore green, and actually I thought she was chic and devastating in that green number by Anna Valentine. Really lovely, with the Philip Tracy hat and the quilted Chanel. And she wore Queen Mary's emerald and sapphire flower brooch, which has quite a history, and it was worn rather a lot in 1909 by Queen Mary herself. She used to wear it around the neck, you know, around the central part of the throat. You could see the brooch, or what is now a brooch, and she was photographed in many portraits during that period when she was receiving Russians, when she was receiving the Russian royal family during Cowes Week, round about the Isle of Wight. And I must say that I am glad to have a consort, a queen consort, who is eager to show off these jewels and gems, and she is enjoying it, and you can tell that she's giving them a dusting off and showing them off, these pieces that are sometimes really rather rarely seen nowadays. So it's nice that she's taking an interest, you know. It's no good in just gathering dust, is it? All these jewels in the royal collection. They must shimmer and shine and be shown off, and I very much hope, that when it is her time, Queen Catherine, the beloved daughter-in-law of the late King Charles, when Queen Catherine takes her place as consort, I hope that she adorns herself with more brooches. It wouldn't do the gal any harm to start practicing now, but you know, at least we can hope for when her queenhood arrives that she will do as she should and bring brooches to the fore, as the likes of I have been doing, although I'm not wearing one today. I wasn't actually going to wear this green velvet with the look. It was going to be a very Easter yellow and mauve only, yellow and lilac sort of, no, it is mauvey purple in real life. But I thought it was a little bit too bright, and so I put this on at the last minute. I'm not sure if the three colours go together, but I'm sure you'll tell me anyway. And also I thought, well, the Queen was wearing green, so I'll put that on. Although I don't really approve of too much green as there was today, because Fergie wore green as well, a very bright green. And, well, Fergie was Fergie. And then the Princess Royal, of course, she wore green, which was gorgeous. Oh, that was gorgeous. A lighter green. It was beguiling. She wore it with brown. And so although they all looked absolutely gorgeous, they really did, the colour palette did not thrill me. But perhaps my taste can run a little bit camp as well, as, you know, for Easter. I think of pastels and pinks and the colour of sugared almonds, this kind of thing. Bunny rabbits dancing through the glen. So in a way it's good that, I'm reined in a little bit and reminded what royalty is. But maybe next year we'll get some more Eastery colours. Sophie did wear purple, but it wasn't a lilac-y mauve. She wore a very royal purple. But as for the rest of them, it was a bit too dark, the colour palette. Too dark and perhaps, might I say, bosky for Easter. A little bosky, but very royal nonetheless. But as for the Duchess of Edinburgh, she was like a Cadbury's chocolate box confection, wasn't she, in a milk tray beret. Actually, that beret or hat affair that she's wearing was borrowed from Lady Lou, but the purple coat was actually Prada. She favours Prada, doesn't she? One of my favourite words. Prada, as with the pumps. Yes, Prada too. And she was proud to show off her son, James, Earl of Wessex, who will always be little Jimmy 7 to me. Don't you ever forget that, my dears. It doesn't matter how much he shoots up like a string bean. He will always be little Jimmy 7 to me, and to some of you I know, my dears, won't he? That's what he'll always be, but time flies by as it does. But he's still only 16, even though he's got his head up in the clouds there. He's still only 16. He's still sitting his exams this year. Yes, he is. And where was Lady Lou? Well, she was studying too. She's in her second year at St Andrews, so she had other matters to attend to. But the Edinburghs were perfectly well represented, and Edward was lovely, and he's taken my advice. He's taken in one of his suits. Can you see, my dear? It's a little better cut. He's taken it in on my advice, and I can only say that I'm more than happy to provide these truths, these home truths. Sometimes you've got to be slightly cruel to be kind, even though I'd never be cruel to the Duke of Edinburgh, you understand. But Sophie needed to be told, and I told her, take his suits in, lovey, and she has. We will certainly not be sullying today's mood with recountings of Harkle behaviour for very long, but I must, for a few moments or minutes, skirt over the issue. And just so you have fair warning, you might want to know that the Duke of Sussex is due on these shores next month. No, where are we? Yeah, May. Next month, May the 8th, at St Paul's Cathedral, where I was at Christmas time, as you know, for the carol service. How dare he walk in the footsteps that I trod? Even though his mother trod them before me down the aisle, she shuffled down there. Well, he is to be coming to the kingdom to celebrate the Invictus Games' 100th anniversary. That's wrong. 10-year anniversary. The 10-year anniversary special service. And Meghan has been making headlines as well. Oh, darling, she has, but not quite in the same sort of vein as our dear Catherine, who is being hailed, and everybody's apologising and taking back their filthy words. Trolls and fans alike, because much of the filth came from so-called fans and admirers who are fannying about with having all these crises and nervous breakdowns just because Catherine hadn't appeared. But Meghan, the Duchess of not muchness, she's been making headlines for this potential lotion that she might be rustling up for American Riviera Orchard. A lotion designed for frostbitten Todgers. This is what they are reduced to, my dear. A lotion for frostbitten Todgers. Well, there aren't many frostbitten Todgers out there, one would hope, because the mind gets queasy at the thought of just one. Ginger, frostbitten Todger, thank you very much, toddering up the aisle, ouch, 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 at William's wedding, as he told us, when he was best man. Best what? Best what? Worst brother. Well, he todgered up that aisle, and now we have the image in our mind of those nuptials. Now we have the image of hungover Harry toddering up there with sore, angry parts that we didn't want to know about, daubed with Elizabeth Arden. And now we hear the possibility is that the Duchess will be merching some sort of ointment or lotion or balm on the men of this kingdom and beyond, or at least the men of America. and most of them have the same sort of condition that Harry has for his member, as he told us, in spare, so they'll have more need for such ointments and balms. But once frostbitten, twice shy. And I did want to read out to you, while we are on the humorous subject of Meghan Markle, a little extract from a piece in The Spectator that I've seen. And it features Tim Dillon. I've no idea who Tim Dillon is. You might know, but he's a comedian. He's an American podcaster, and apparently he's popular because he said a few choice words about Meghan and this comedy of errors, because everybody's just finding it a farce and hilarious and nobody takes her seriously at all. It's a comedy of errors. He says, "I like her now. I fully like her." Wait for it. "As soon as she launched a lifestyle brand, I liked her because it all became apparent and obvious and it became very funny. I would have lunch with her. I think she's a great con artist and I respect the great con artists. She's one of the greats, one of the great con artists of our time." He's on the money. He's on the money, isn't he, this boy? To leave a country because you're concerned about racism and because everyone's being racist and it's not fair and there's privilege, and then to come and live in the wealthiest town in another country, which is Montecito, Santa Barbara. To live in that town and then launch a lifestyle brand called American Riviera Orchard is truly one of the funniest things I've ever seen. It's absolutely hilarious. It's a level of shamelessness to be commended. Well, I would go quite so far as to agree with commending, but we are speaking of a comedian here, so it's a joke, but the point is made. It's absolutely hilarious, he says. Meghan is a Hollywood actress. If you think the royal family is cold, if you think the royal family is calculating, you've never met a Hollywood actress. And I actually think that calling her a Hollywood actress is gilding the lily, darling, because we have pondweed. We have pondweed rather than a lily to be gilded, and I think Hollywood actress is doing her far too much a greater service, my dear. Hollywood Boulevard, perhaps, or Sunset Boulevard. Oh, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. Norma the performer, that's what she is. Now, to turn back to the subject of Ian Towning, who is the gentleman that runs a wonderful jewellery and antiques shop, who was attacked. You'll have to watch the previous broadcast if you haven't heard about this and wish to. But following up on that, Shendara Al-Shadir, what a glamorous name, my dear, was one of many basketeers who shared good wishes and prayers for Mr. Towning, and thank you so much for those kind words. Not that they were aimed at me, but I appreciate the sentiment that you left for the gentleman. Shendara says, "My heart hurt for the gentleman with the gorgeous treasure shop who was attacked and robbed so viciously. One of those heinous crimes is enough to endure. Both is beyond disgusting." Yes, because he was attacked many years ago as well. "He is truly gracious to be more forgiving than most would be. Happy Easter weekend, River. And to you too, my dear, if you celebrate. Since we last spoke, the two balaclava-clad cowards have been photographed because they were caught on CCTV. They haven't been caught, to the best of my knowledge, but they have been found. If you wish to look at the footage, you can look it up, Google recent articles about it, but there is video. Although they're in balaclavas, as they escape the premises, their faces peek out somewhat, enough to be recognisable, especially with one of them. These two cowards that attacked not just one 73-year-old kindly gentleman who runs this wonderful, fabulous Aladdin's Cave in Chelsea, but his partner, Les, I think is the name. Yes, Les Barrett was attacked, his partner, and also a security guard that they employ, a 58-year-old who was viciously attacked around the head and had a deep gash to the back of his head. And I've suffered a gash like that before at the receiving end of a wine bottle. And I know how vulnerable one can feel with a big gash in the middle of your head. And he got it stitched up. And I'm not going to include the photographs that are rather graphic with blood all over Mr. Towning and his security guard, but they are online, they were shared in the national newspapers, and it's just so incredibly sad. But again, we have the graciousness shown by Mr. Towning, who says, "I was lucky, my injuries could have been much worse." Always looking on the shiny end of the lollipop, not the fuzzy end. Thoroughly royal attitude to take, no self-pity. "Though I am still in a lot of pain," he says. I'm not sure that I could show such a lack of self-pity in these circumstances. So I praise and admire Mr. Towning for that attitude, but he was battered with a claw hammer. That is how he sustained his injuries, and I can only be extremely grateful that, as he says, that he wasn't more hurt or killed by these animals, these monsters. But I can only wish these three gentlemen the very best, and keep my fingers crossed that justice in some way will be done. A few days ago, on the 27th of March, I criticised the Church of England in one of my broadcasts, as I have done before, even though I have a great deal of respect and admiration for the Church of England. I also have my criticisms recently. If you've been watching the broadcast, you'll know. And under Justin Welby, it must be said, under his leadership as the Archbishop of Canterbury. Well, 2 days after that broadcast, Stephen Glover popped up, and Stephen Glover said that the Church of England's gone stark raving bonkers. If it persists in telling white worshippers they're racists, it'll condemn itself to oblivion, which was more or less exactly what I told you, and what I also think. And as Stephen Glover says, his father was a priest, his 2 uncles were priests, his 2 brother-in-laws were bishops, and the 3rd brother-in-law was a canon. So he is au fait with the Church of England, and he says that I can say with confidence that the Church whose ways I've observed, the white gaze, you can only observe it with your white gaze, Mr. Glover, so it's rather warped. Yeah, right. Sorry to interject with my sarcasm. The Church whose ways I've observed and in which I have worshipped is one of the least racist institutions in our country. Now we are told that the institution has racism embedded into it. This is what we keep being lectured about. And Justin Welby has actually called the Church of England deeply institutionally racist. And many members of the Church of England aren't happy about it. He had claimed some time ago that radical and decisive action was necessary, and he seems to be carrying it out, and it seems to be going down like a lead balloon, to be honest, with congregations all over the kingdom who are leaving in droves. Does he want empty churches all over the land from the disillusioned and, quite frankly, the insulted? He drank the Kool-Aid, all this critical theory stuff and all these equality commissions. He set up his own commission for racial justice, and as we've spoken about, been appointing a racial justice directorate, all entirely unnecessary. And Stephen Glover asks, why are the Church of England gripped by the secular American-bred critical race theory to such an extent that it is effectively renouncing its past achievements and lashing itself for its present supposed shortcomings? Well, my viewer, Sniffy67, says, I think Justin Welby is a disastrous Archbishop of Canterbury, in my opinion. I keep my church within me these days, as my church has been taken from me by wokeism. I'm barely allowed to be an aged white woman with loads of lived experience. Yeah, I'm afraid white lived experience doesn't count, my dear. It doesn't count for anything. It's the white gaze. Stop looking at me with the white gaze. Oh dear. And R.H. says to me, bravo, River, you captured so eloquently the way I, and I believe millions of others, feel about the way this country's heading. I've started getting regular, soft-focus ads in my social media feeds for Islam and Ramadan. It feels very much like there is an agenda being promoted here, given I'm a baptised Catholic. Why is this religion being promoted to me, given all the other faiths practiced in the kingdom? Well, there are many reasons for that, my dear, but one reason, according to Peter Hitchens, is a point he makes about Labour's 2010 Equality Act, unrepealed by the Tories, which he claims dethroned Christianity as our national religion and made it just one of many competing faiths. So he points to the recklessness of this Equality Act. Some of these Equality Acts have a lot to answer for, in my royal opinion. Did you expect it would just go on forever, the Christian religion, without your help, he asks? This is the thing. I don't even consider myself a practicing devout Christian, but I'm trying to do my little bit to support the feeling of gentle Christianity inspired behaviour in the background, because I find it healthier than the thought of living in a religious state just a few short decades down the line, which isn't that far-fetched, the way things are going. But there is some optimism. There is some optimism here, because Mr. Hitchens also predicts a renewed interest in Christianity as a side effect of this Islamic growth that we see. And actually, if I was to be optimistic for a second, I would also say that if that's true, and it is galvanising a renewed interest, which even I've noticed within myself and my audience, and actually beyond the Anglosphere, I've had comments from Japan as well. Places as far-flung as Japan noticing the same issues going on. It's quite something, although I have heard, conversely, going on another tangent, that China, we'll talk about this another time, but China and their interest in Christianity has grown into 100 million over the last few decades. So it's on the increase with China. All of a sudden they don't look quite so sinister after all. I digress, but yeah, I think now is the time to grasp the metal. Speak, if you care about this issue, speak about it with your friends. Get tongues wagging. Next time you're in a second-hand bookshop, browse the section on religion and see what you can pick up on Christianity. I do it, and I've shown you quite a selection of books from second-hand bookshops and charity bookshops that have become a great resource for me, and I pick them up quite randomly. There's one I showed you recently. I'll read it to you again another time, because I've been reading it throughout this month. It actually gives me recommended reading every day for a month, and I'm about halfway through it, but it's a fabulous source of inspiration and education for me, this particular book. But that's just an idea for you to bring a little bit of the teachings of Christianity into your life, even if you just want to be inspired by them and you've enjoyed growing up here with gentle Christianity in the background. I know it's not the way for everybody. Some want a more devout Christianity and religion. I don't really see that ever happening again here anytime soon. You never know. But I think the more realistic and actually perhaps a more healthy way is a gentle Christianity, but with a gentle strength that is sure of itself, that isn't wishy-washy, that isn't bendable to passing fads and fashions and politics. You know, something that remains gently, positively true in itself and gives us services to attend, more than just once for midnight mass here and there or an Easter service, but try popping along with your family one Sunday to a local church if you've never done it before. Maybe the coffee morning there. Get talking to people. It's about the socialising. It's about going to a place where everybody knows your name, you know. It's down to us. And if you are part of a congregation and you have found yourself hearing things that you don't like, hearing too much wokeism, don't go looking for trouble. I'm not asking you to do that, but if you've already been troubled by things and you hear things that trouble you, don't be afraid to make your feelings politely but firmly known, whether that be by letter or having a word with your local clergy, your canon, or your vicar, or your rector. Do they still use that word, rector? Don't be silent about it. Make your feelings clear. because once there is a cacophony of voices raising their objections, perhaps they might start listening a bit. Buckingham Palace released a message from the King to the people of Canada. Today, I would like to offer my most sincere congratulations to the Royal Canadian Air Force as you celebrate 100 years of serving Canada, Canadians and the world. Over the past century, the RCAF has contributed to peace and security across the world, thanks to the skill and professionalism of its many dedicated members. I honour those who made the ultimate sacrifice in the service of their country, as well as extending my deepest appreciation to all RCAF members, both past and present, and to their families. Over the years, my family and I have had opportunities to meet many dedicated RCAF members. My wife and I remember with great fondness our own visit to an RCAF wing in 2017 to meet those whose tireless efforts to search for and rescue those in distress have saved countless lives. On this centennial anniversary and throughout the coming year, my family and I send our most heartfelt congratulations to you all. Charles R. I was looking around for a poem to finish the broadcast on related to Easter, and the first one I found was this one I'm going to read out. Easter Day by Oscar Wilde. It's only a short poem, but the first half of it describes the appearance of a man, the Pope, on the scene and appearing in his regalia with jewels and gems and trinkets, and he's being worshipped and adored. And then the second half of the poem relates and relays and compares that to the life of Jesus Christ and how different Christian teaching is from what the observer observed when he was seeing this sort of papal kingly figure adored and revered and daubed with jewels and gems. And so it comes across a little bit critical of Catholicism actually when you read it. But please don't be offended, any Catholics, because you can apply it to any religion, and Oscar Wilde himself, who wrote this, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but he died Catholic. I think he had a vague memory of being baptized Catholic, being Irish as he was, a vague memory of being baptized Catholic, and then weaved in and out of the religion throughout his life, but he always was drawn to it and found it very, very appealing, and the theatricality of it, of course. And I believe that when he was on his deathbed, he ended his life after converting to Catholicism. So please don't be offended by the fact that it mentions the Pope, because he had a great love for all things Catholic. But that's the one that I've chosen to read out today. And without further ado, I will thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to catching up with you next time. As I mentioned earlier, thank you most sincerely if you sent me a little Easter treat. It's very kind of you. And please leave me a lovely comment, because they are also the gems and jewels of this channel, as is your fruity presence, my fruit gems. Until next time, channel the royal spirit. Toodle pip. The silver trumpets rang across the dome. The people knelt upon the ground with awe, and borne upon the necks of men I saw, like some great god, the holy lord of Rome. Priest-like, he wore a robe, more white than foam, and king-like swathed himself in royal red. 3 crowns of gold rose high upon his head. In splendour and in light the Pope passed home. My heart stole back across wide wastes of years to one who wandered by a lonely sea, and sought in vain for any place of rest. Foxes have holes, and every bird its nest. I, only I, must wander wearily, and bruise my feet, and drink wine salt with tears.